The wind moves quietly through the trees of odd West Virginia, a place that, for years, has been more myth than map. On a narrow back road sits the Whittaker family home, a weathered reminder of generations past, and of a story that both captivated and divided millions. But now, something has changed. Patrick, the quiet one, the shadow in the background of the Whittakers' YouTube fame, is ready to speak, and the internet is waiting. For years, the Whittaker family has been at the center of one of YouTube's most haunting sagas, a story of poverty, resilience, and the uncomfortable questions about how far curiosity and content creation can go. When filmmaker Mark Leda first introduced the world to the Whittakers through his Soft White Underbelly channel, the reactions were immediate: sympathy, fascination, outrage, confusion. Some saw exploitation. Others saw exposure, and in the middle of it all were real people: Patrick, Larry, Betty, BJ, and the late Ray. But today, the narrative has shifted. Patrick, long silent, long judged, has something to say. It started with whispers on smaller channels, creators claiming Patrick had reached out to them, wanting to tell his side. One of those channels, Toddy1 Skip, said Patrick wanted to come on and clear the air. That single sentence changed everything. In the online true story community, Patrick's name carries a certain tension. He's been portrayed as a manipulator by some, a victim by others, but rarely has he spoken for himself. And now, for the first time, he wants to. If you followed the Whittakers' journey, you know how complicated their relationships have become, the sudden YouTube fame, the internal fallout, and the endless rumors. And now, with Patrick stepping forward, one question echoes through comment sections and livestream chats alike: is Patrick telling the truth or just rewriting it? Let's trace how we got here. It wasn't long ago that the Whittaker name meant nothing outside of their small corner of West Virginia. The first Soft White Underbelly videos changed that forever. Millions of views poured in. Viewers couldn't look away from the harsh realities: the broken furniture, the unspoken pain, the humanity laid bare. But while the audience watched in shock, a new kind of fame quietly began to form around them. Donations, attention, speculation. The line between help and harm began to blur, and somewhere along the way, the family itself began to fracture. That fracture is where Patrick's story begins, according to community voices, and even to channels that have followed this saga for months. Patrick was once close to BJ, Larry, and Betty, but that's over now. They've turned on him. Some claim Patrick was meddling in their business, knowing too much, speaking too loudly. Others say he was betrayed, pushed out after the money from their viral fame started flowing. In the last few weeks, smaller creators have shared screenshots, snippets of voice messages, and clips suggesting that Patrick wants to set the record straight. But what record? And why now? For many viewers, the timing feels deliberate. After all, September's YouTube payouts, according to chatter in the Whittaker Watch community, might have been substantial. Some estimate over $50,000 in earnings tied to the family's videos and coverage. If that's true, then there's more at stake than just storytelling. There's money, control, and pride. And Patrick? He may be the only one who knows where it all went. What makes this twist even more fascinating is who Patrick reached out to. He didn't go to Soft White Underbelly. He didn't start his own channel. He went to a small creator, a voice in the YouTube commentary space known as Toddy1 Skip. That detail alone raised eyebrows. Why would Patrick choose someone outside of the major platforms to speak through? Maybe he wants control. Maybe he's scared. Maybe, after everything, he still doesn't trust anyone. Toddy has already confirmed that Patrick contacted her personally, wanting to come on her channel, to talk, to explain. She didn't say when. She didn't say why. Just that Patrick wants to talk. And for a story this volatile, that's all it takes to set the internet on fire. Because here's the truth. Everyone has their own version of the Whittaker story. There's the public story, the viral videos, their commentary channels, the TikTok snippets taken out of context. And then there's the private story, the tangled web of family loyalties, resentment, and survival. Some say Patrick was ostracized after confronting others in the family about financial issues. Who controls what? Who receives the donations? Who decides what's shared online? Others believe it goes deeper, that the family's newfound fame created tensions no one could handle. And now, that silence is breaking when Patrick appears. Whether on Toddy's channel or elsewhere, the questions will come hard and fast. What happened to the Whittakers' YouTube money? Why did the family turn on each other? And is Patrick the villain people make him out to be, or the only one brave enough to tell the truth? What's most striking is how this story mirrors the rise and fall of online empathy itself. We build people up, crown them as symbols of human resilience, then tear them down when the reality gets uncomfortable. The Whittakers never asked to be a viral sensation. But once the cameras rolled, their lives were no longer private, and Patrick? He's been silent long enough to watch how the narrative twisted, how his family became content, and how he became a character. Now he's taking that power back. He's speaking, not just to defend himself, but to reveal what's been happening behind the scenes. According to some, he's been told by law enforcement to stay away from certain family members. Others say it's just gossip, the kind of rumor that always fills the gaps when no one tells the truth. Whatever it is, the truth has weight, and Patrick is carrying it alone. Imagine what it must feel like, being part of a viral story that millions think they understand, while knowing the real story hasn't been told. For the first time, Patrick isn't just a name in someone else's video title, he's the voice. And if he really does step onto a YouTube livestream and speak, this small, strange corner of internet folklore could change again. Overnight. That's why this moment matters. Not because it's another dose of drama, but because it's a turning point. A man reclaiming his name in a story that was never his to begin with. The online community is split. Some say they've heard enough. Others are setting reminders, waiting for the notification. Patrick goes live. You can already see it in the comment sections, lines drawn, sides forming. One side sees a manipulator returning for attention. The other sees a man finally breaking his silence after years of being misunderstood. And somewhere between those two extremes is the truth. But before we can get there, we have to rewind to understand how this all began. Because to grasp why Patrick's speaking now matters, we need to understand what the Whittakers became and how their story left West Virginia and took root in the minds of millions. So as we move deeper into this story, we'll look at how the Whittaker family's rise to YouTube fame changed everything, not just for them, but for how we see poverty, fame, and the blurred line between empathy and exploitation. This isn't just a family feud. It's a story about the cost of visibility. And about what happens when someone decides to fight for their truth, even when the world has already made up its mind. If you followed the Whittakers' story from the beginning, or if you're hearing about it for the first time, one thing's for sure. This next chapter will redefine everything we thought we knew. Patrick is ready to talk, and when he does, the silence surrounding the Whittakers' world will never sound the same again. Comment below. Do you believe Patrick deserves a platform to tell his side? Or should the Whittaker story finally be left alone? Your thoughts might just shape how this story unfolds next. The story of the Whittaker family begins long before the cameras arrived, before the thumbnails, the documentaries, and the debates about exploitation. There was a quiet town, one of those forgotten American places where the mountains fold in on themselves and time seems to move slower. In that small community of West Virginia, the Whittakers were known by everyone. The family had lived there for generations, surviving off the land, off odd jobs, and off each other. Their home wasn't much by city standards, but it was theirs. It sat at the edge of a gravel road surrounded by forest, weathered by rain and time. They were, by all accounts, private people. Until one day, the world showed up at their front porch with a camera. When Mark Leda of Soft White Underbelly uploaded the first video featuring the Whittaker family, he had no idea what would follow. He'd spent years interviewing people from the fringes of society, the forgotten, the voiceless, the broken. But this one was different. It wasn't just an interview. It was a glimpse into something raw, unsettling, and profoundly human. Millions clicked. Millions watched. And millions had questions. Why did they speak the way they did? How were they living like this in modern America? And who, exactly, were the Whittakers? The internet reacted in ways that were both predictable and cruel. Some were fascinated, seeing the video as a heartbreaking window into generational poverty. Others were horrified, leaving comments that felt less like empathy and more like ridicule. But for the Whittakers, something irreversible had happened. They had become a phenomenon. Soon. Other videos followed. More visits, more interviews, more attention. And as the view counts climbed, so did the questions about who was benefiting. Patrick wasn't always the face of the family. In early videos, it was Ray, the late patriarch, whose presence defined much of what people remembered. His vacant eyes, his unfiltered laughter, his wordless noises, they became the viral focus. But Patrick, in the background, was watching. He was younger, sharper, more aware of the cameras than anyone realized. As time went on, Patrick started stepping forward. He became a kind of spokesperson, translating, explaining, interacting. The audience started to recognize him as the voice of the family, but with visibility came tension. And with tension came division. Money began to flow into the family. Donations, gifts, GoFundMes, acts of kindness from viewers who felt moved to help. But anyone who's ever seen what fame does to small towns knows how quickly generosity can turn to suspicion. Who was handling the donations? Who was spending the money? And were the Whittakers even aware of how much their story was worth? That's where Patrick's story takes a darker turn, because depending on who you ask, he was either the protector or the problem, according to some local accounts and commentary. Channels that have tracked this saga for years. Patrick became more vocal about the way things were being handled. He reportedly wanted accountability, to know where the money was going, who was managing it, and why. But others saw it differently. They say Patrick started meddling, creating friction within the family. He allegedly accused others, BJ, Larry, and Betty, of hiding things, of keeping him out eventually. The rift split wide open. What had started as quiet family disagreements turned into public feuds, leaked Facebook posts, side conversations, and videos dissecting every rumor. And through it all, Patrick kept quiet. Until now. What makes Patrick's upcoming interview so important is not just what he might say, but what his silence has already said. For months, creators like Psychology Eats, Toddy One Skip, and others in this tight-knit commentary circle have been piecing together fragments of his story. Theories about his relationships, his role, his motives. One thing is certain: he feels betrayed by family, by outsiders, by the very system that turned his life into content. And that's what makes this next chapter so tense, when someone who has lived under public judgment for years finally decides to speak. What will come out isn't just gossip. It's truth dressed in trauma. But to understand why this moment matters, you have to look at how fame distorted everything the Whittakers once were. Before the documentaries, there was loyalty. There was shared struggle. There was survival afterward. There was hierarchy. There was money. There was resentment. It's not hard to imagine how that happens. When a camera gives you attention, when strangers online praise you, pity you, donate to you, you start to feel like you matter in a way you never did before. But then the camera turns away, and all that's left are the people who still live there, still poor, still vulnerable, still dealing with the consequences of the story they didn't write. Patrick's decision to speak out now feels like a response to that imbalance, like a man saying, "I've had enough." He's not the filmmaker. He's not the outsider trying to document rural life. He is rural life. He's lived it, lost through it, and now he wants to reclaim it, whether you believe him or not. His voice matters because it comes from the inside. And in the world of digital storytelling, that kind of truth is rare. Of course, not everyone sees Patrick as a truth-teller. In the online echo chamber surrounding the Whittakers, opinions are divided. Some viewers call him manipulative, a man who thrives on stirring drama to stay relevant. Others argue that he's been pushed out, silenced, and mocked unfairly. It's hard to tell what's real anymore because the internet has turned this family into a kind of performance, art, part documentary, part rumor, part myth. But there's something deeply human buried in all this noise. Behind every viral video is a person. Behind every rumor is pain. And behind Patrick's decision to speak out might just be years of trying to survive being misunderstood. The more you listen to people from their community or to creators who've watched this unfold in real time, the more you realize how fragile this situation is. The Whittaker's sudden YouTube fame didn't come with media training, lawyers, or management. It came with chaos. And that chaos has consequences. Neighbors talk. Locals whisper. Everyone has an opinion about who's using who, but when the dust settles, there's one simple truth. The Whittakers are people trying to navigate a world that doesn't play by their rules, and Patrick, for better or worse, is stepping into that world head-on. There's also the question of timing. Why now? Why is Patrick suddenly ready to tell his side? Some say it's because the family's YouTube checks have become a source of tension. According to estimates from online discussions, September's payout alone may have been around $50,000. Patrick reportedly believes he deserves a share. If those numbers are anywhere close to true, then this isn't just about pride. It's about survival. Patrick's supporters argue that he was part of the content, that his face, his words, his life helped generate those views. So shouldn't he see some of that money? It's a fair question, one that mirrors larger conversations about exploitation in online storytelling. When real lives become entertainment, who gets paid? And then there's the silence of Mark Leda himself while Patrick prepares to speak. Mark has stayed mostly quiet, continuing to film new stories but saying little about the Whittakers' internal conflicts. For some, that silence feels like dignity. For others, it feels like avoidance, because without the filmmaker's voice, the internet has filled in the blanks, creating a swirl of conspiracy, compassion, and chaos. The truth might be simple, or it might be so complex no one outside that holler will ever understand it. Either way, the cameras return, this time not in Mark's hands, but in Patrick's voice, will force everyone to see the story differently. You can sense the tension. Online, live stream chats light up with speculation, comment. Sections read like battlegrounds, half empathy, half exhaustion. People want to know what Patrick will say, but they also want closure. They want to know, is this the end of the Whittaker story or just another painful chapter? And maybe deep down, they want to know something even more uncomfortable, whether the world helped heal the Whittakers or helped break them. What's remarkable is how, despite everything, Patrick still inspires conversation, because behind the rumors and rivalries, there's still a family struggling to exist in two realities, the one they live and the one the internet created. And somewhere between those two worlds, Patrick stands, ready to talk, ready to fight for his truth, and maybe, finally, ready to be heard. The Whittaker saga has always been about contrasts, compassion versus curiosity, exposure versus exploitation, silence versus truth. And now, with Patrick stepping forward, we might finally hear what it felt like from the inside. The noise, the attention, the money, the pain, all of it. It's not about choosing sides anymore. It's about listening, because no matter how loud the internet gets, the real story is told in quiet moments. A man sitting in his car, afraid of the fox outside his window, trying to make sense of a world that won't stop watching him. Comment below. Do you think the Whittaker family's fame was a blessing or a curse? And when Patrick finally speaks, will he bring clarity or just more questions? The deeper you go into the Whittaker story, the less it feels like entertainment and the more it feels like tragedy. Not the kind of tragedy that happens once, but the kind that unfolds slowly, the kind that wears people down, one misunderstanding at a time. Because if part one was about silence breaking, and part two was about fame finding its way into the holler, then part three is about what fame leaves behind: suspicion, betrayal, and money that no one can quite account for. Patrick once said in a small Facebook post, later deleted, that people only see what they're shown. And maybe he's right. Because what we've seen of the Whittakers is just a fraction of what's really happening behind those closed doors and weather-beaten walls. When money entered the equation, everything changed. Suddenly, those same family members who once shared scraps of food, chores, and memories started whispering about checks, about who got paid and who did and single quotes. According to conversations circulating online, Patrick believed he was owed a share of the YouTube earnings, a cut of the income generated from the videos that featured him and his family, if those numbers are even half true, around $50,000 from 1 month's payout. That's not a small argument. That's life-changing money in a town where most people live day-to-day. And Patrick? He claims he hasn't seen a dime. He's not the only one asking questions. Even local viewers, people who once donated out of kindness, are now wondering, where did all the money go? Was it used to fix up the home? Was it saved for the family's care? Or did it vanish in the confusion, lost between bank accounts, cash apps, and promises? Nobody seems to know. Some supporters defend the family's right to privacy. They say outsiders shouldn't be entitled to know how donations were used, but others, including those who sent their own hard-earned money, feel betrayed. Transparency, they argue, is the price of turning real lives into public content. And Patrick has become the lightning rod for that debate. In his recent statements through smaller creators like Toddy One Skip and Psychology Eats, Patrick doesn't sound angry so much as tired. Tired of being misunderstood, tired of being blamed for things he says he didn't do, tired of being treated like the enemy in a story he helped build. He insists that he's been cut off, frozen, out of family circles, talked about but never talked to. According to Patrick, BJ, Larry, and Betty want nothing to do with him anymore. He claims they believe he's been spying on them, maybe even setting them up. Some online speculate that Patrick knows too much, that he's aware of conversations, money trails, or deals that were supposed to stay private. And now that he's preparing to go public, those secrets could come out. But is Patrick telling the truth? Or is this just another chapter in a story where everyone believes they're the victim? That's what makes this saga so uniquely haunting. There are no clean villains or heroes, just people who've been pushed too far. To some, Patrick's behavior seems erratic, desperate for validation, seeking an audience to finally say, "See? I was right." To others, it's courage, a man refusing to stay quiet while everyone else rewrites his story. Maybe it's both. Let's not forget how much pressure Comey's from being known by millions but understood by none. The internet's gaze is heavy. It distorts everything it touches. The same video that gives someone compassion can also make them a caricature. The Whittakers didn't ask for that. But once their faces were online, there was no going back. And for Patrick, the one who watched everything unfold, the weight of that visibility might have been unbearable. Imagine watching your own life being dissected, monetized, and debated by strangers who don't even know your last name. Imagine being told you're ungrateful or sneaky or crazy, when all you wanted was fairness. That's the kind of pain that doesn't go away when the camera stops rolling. The more you listen to Patrick's side, the clearer his frustration becomes. He isn't just angry at his family, he's angry at how the internet shaped their reality. He's seen outsiders profit off interviews, he's watched fans become detectives, reporters, and judges. He's watched strangers claim to know the Whittakers better than the Whittakers know themselves. And maybe that's what this whole confrontation is about, reclaiming humanity in a space that's turned them into spectacle. Because whether you see Patrick as right or wrong, his voice reminds us of something bigger. When people become content, their suffering becomes optional for everyone except them. But make no mistake, this is no small-town squabble anymore. A digital morality play. The moment Patrick speaks publicly, if he truly does, the internet will dissect every sentence, his tone, his words, his motives. Everything will be studied, clipped, and debated. And yet, for all the noise, few will actually listen, because at its core, Patrick's message isn't just about money. It's about feeling invisible in a story that made everyone else famous. He wants recognition, yes, but more than that, he wants to be seen as human again. Some say that Patrick is being manipulated himself, that certain creators see him as a tool to stir controversy and gain views. It's possible. The YouTube algorithm loves drama. Every time a new clip drops, another wave of reactions follows, breakdowns, analyzes, reaction videos, think pieces. Patrick may be walking into a digital trap without realizing it, because in the online world, truth doesn't matter as much as content. And if his story brings traffic, it will be used again and again. But then again, what choice does he have? If no one listens when he's quiet, maybe speaking loudly is the only option left. Meanwhile, other names continue to swirl in the background. Brian, BJ, Larry, Betty, Eric, each of them represents a piece of a puzzle that no one can fully assemble. Some say Brian has taken Patrick's place as the family's trusted friend. Others say he's just another outsider drawn to the fame. BJ is rumored to still be living near the family, though her relationship with Patrick appears broken beyond repair. Larry and Betty? Silent, watching from the shadows of a story they never asked to be part of. And Eric, the man whose name keeps coming up in connection to the YouTube payouts, remains at the center of Patrick's main question. Where's my money? According to Patrick's own claims, he believes Eric received the full YouTube check, which should have been divided into shares. Patrick calculates his cut at around $14,000, maybe less after taxes, but he says he got nothing. That number, that $14,000, has become symbolic. Not just as a dollar amount, but as proof that he mattered. Proof that he wasn't forgotten. Because sometimes it's not about the money itself. It's about what it represents: dignity, fairness, acknowledgement. You can almost hear the frustration in Patrick's words as relayed by others. Don't let Eric steal your money. That's not just advice, it's a warning. A plea. He's watched too many people walk away richer, financially or reputationally, while he stayed behind with nothing but gossip and scars. So, when he says he's ready to speak, it's not just for revenge. It's to reclaim what was his. Even if it's only the truth. The sad irony is that everyone in this story feels cheated in some way. BJ believes she was owed something. Patrick feels robbed of recognition. Even viewers who donated feel tricked by the mystery of where their money went. And yet, despite all this bitterness, there's still something deeply human holding them together. Family, broken, fractured, mistrustful, but family. They may not speak, but their lives are forever linked by the videos that made them famous. That's what makes this so painful to watch. Every interview, every comment, every rumor is like reopening the same wound. When you look at the big picture, Patrick's story is about more than money or pride. It's about survival. In the digital age, it's about what happens when ordinary people collide with extraordinary exposure and when no one prepares them for the cost. The Whittakers were never built for fame. They were built for each other. But fame doesn't care about bloodlines. It turns family into headlines. And now that family is fractured, maybe beyond repair. If Patrick truly appears on Toddy One Skip's channel, it could either heal something or destroy it completely. Because once he speaks, the rest of the family might feel cornered. They might respond publicly. They might retaliate. And the story, already fragile, could spiral even further. But maybe that's what Patrick wants. Maybe, for the first time in years, he wants the truth to finally do what silence never could. Make people listen. The next chapter of this saga will test everything: loyalty, trust, and the blurred boundaries between real life and online storytelling. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just Patrick versus his family. It's Patrick versus the system that made them famous and left them fractured. And when he finally speaks, his words won't just echo through West Virginia. They'll ripple across every screen, every comment thread, every person who ever watched a family become a story. Comment below. Do you think Patrick's fight for fairness is justified? Or has the line between truth and revenge already disappeared? Whose side are you on? or is everyone losing something in this battle? The mountain air is quiet again in odd West Virginia, but it's the kind of quiet that hums, the kind that comes before a storm, because somewhere out there, in that hollow between truth and rumor, Patrick is getting ready to talk. The moment everyone has been waiting for or dreading is coming after years of whispers, side comments, deleted posts, and secondhand stories. Patrick has decided he's done being silent. He wants the world to hear his truth, unfiltered, unedited, unmuted, and when he finally does, nothing about the Whittakers' story will ever be the same again. What began as a human interest documentary has become one of YouTube's most complicated moral questions. It's no longer just about the Whittakers. It's about what happens when human suffering becomes public property. When the first soft white underbelly videos appeared, people watched in awe, moved by the rawness of life that rarely makes it onto polished platforms. It felt important. It felt real, but somewhere along the way, that empathy turned into obsession. Viewers began tracking every movement, every word, every family feud like it was a reality show. And Patrick, he became both protagonist and villain in a drama he never auditioned for. Now, with the promise of his tell-all interview on Toddy One Skip's channel, that blurred line between documentation and entertainment is about to be tested again. If Patrick's goal is redemption, the path won't be easy. He's walking into an arena that thrives on spectacle. For every person who wants to understand his pain, there are 10 waiting to twist it into headlines and thumbnails. The moment he appears on screen, his expressions will be paused, his sentences clipped, his motives analyzed. And that's the tragedy of modern storytelling. It's not enough to tell your truth. You also have to survive how people interpret it. Still, Patrick seems ready. People close to him say he's tired of the lies, tired of being painted as the outsider, tired of everyone else making money and meaning from his family's misery. To him, this isn't just about attention. It's about agency. About reclaiming his right to exist outside of other people's narratives, but the stakes are high. Once Patrick speaks, others will have to respond. BJ may post her own rebuttal. Larry might finally break his silence, and the community, that sprawling web of creators and fans who've built an ecosystem around the Whittaker story, will explode into argument. Again, one side will call him brave, the other will call him bitter, and everyone will swear they saw it coming, because that's how online morality works. Instant judgment, zero context. But for Patrick, this isn't a story arc. It's his life, a life that's been lived under the weight of cameras, whispers, and expectations. It's strange, isn't it, that a family who once lived almost invisibly in rural Appalachia is now one of the most discussed families on the internet. People who used to be neighbors now have to read their own names in comment sections. People who once fought over firewood now fight over footage. The Whittakers never chased fame. Fame found them, and when it did, it divided them. Patrick's voice might be the only one left that can close the gap, or widen it forever. Some say his interview will expose the truth about money, who got what, who took what, and who's been lying. Others say he'll use it to rebuild his reputation, to show that he's not the paranoid troublemaker people think he is. Whatever happens, one thing is certain. Once those words are spoken, they can't be taken back, and for a family already living in the shadow of exposure, another round of public attention could be devastating. That's the paradox of truth. It can free you, but it can also destroy everything around you. The online world is waiting. Channels are already scheduling live reactions. Comment sections are preparing for the flood. Everyone wants to be first to interpret, to react, to define. But no one can predict how it will feel to actually hear Patrick speak, to hear the emotion in his voice. The hurt, the defiance, the years of pent-up explanation trying to escape. Will he sound angry? Broken? Hopeful? Maybe all three, because that's what happens when silence turns into a confession. It's worth asking, what do we really want from Patrick? Closure? Drama? Redemption? Do we want to understand him or just watch him unravel? Because every time someone refreshes a feed waiting for that interview to drop, they're not just waiting for entertainment, they're waiting for a man's pain, and yet, that's the uncomfortable truth about the world we live in. The line between empathy and exploitation has never been thinner. Patrick's story has always been about more than one man. It's about what happens when real people become public property, when a life meant to be private becomes part of the algorithm. The Whittakers were never characters, they were survivors of poverty, isolation, misunderstanding, and now fame. And Patrick, for all his flaws and anger, is a reflection of something deeper, the cost of being seen. The world often praises authenticity until it becomes inconvenient. We say we want real stories, but we only handle them when they fit into neat, digestible arcs. The Whittakers never did. That's why people can't stop watching, because their story isn't just about them. It's about us. Our fascination with the other, our obsession with BROKENNESS. Our belief that by watching, we're helping even when we're not. Patrick's upcoming tell-all is more than a family feud. It's a mirror held up to everyone who's ever clicked, commented, or cared, and then moved on. But maybe, just maybe, Patrick's voice could still do something good. Maybe his version of the story, raw, imperfect, unpolished, could remind people what got lost in all the noise. Compassion. He's not asking for sympathy. He's asking for fairness, for a chance to be heard, without being edited into someone else's headline. And if the internet can grant him that, even for one interview, maybe there's still hope that stories like this can be told without turning people into content. In the end, no matter how you feel about Patrick, you can't deny this. His decision to speak is an act of courage. To open your mouth when the world has already decided who you are. That's not easy. To risk backlash, mockery, and doubt just to reclaim your truth. That's power. He's not a saint. He's not a villain. He's a man trying to be understood in a world that forgot how to listen. And whether you believe him or not, you can't ignore him anymore. When Patrick's voice finally echoes through the speakers on Toddy's channel, or wherever he chooses to tell his story, it won't just be about one family. It will be about every person who's ever been misunderstood, mislabeled, or misused by the systems built to tell their stories for them. The Whittakers will live on in our screens and memories, not as internet curiosities, but as proof that even the smallest, quietest corners of America can hold the world's biggest truths. The silence in odd West Virginia won't last forever. Soon, Patrick will speak, and when he does, the noise won't just come from the comments. It'll come from all of us, trying to decide what kind of audience we really are. Will we listen to understand or listen to judge? That choice, more than Patrick's words, will decide what kind of ending this story gets. Comment below. When Patrick finally speaks, what do you want to hear from him? Truth, apology, or peace? And after everything the Whittakers have endured, do you think the world deserves their story anymore? Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.